Welcome back to part 2 of Find Your Search, looking at how to get found beyond Google in places like Maps, socials, YouTube, etc. We came up with the term Find Your Search to talk about how the search landscape is changing with AI, but also with search behavior and intent, what small business owners need to know about it and what they need to do about it. So in part 1, if you haven't watched that already, definitely go give that a watch. That's talking about kind of the evolution of search, how we got to where it is today. If we think about an input into Google in the 10 blue link era, you tried to be really short and succinct. And now with AI, you can have these long, multi-part, complex questions into Gemini, straight into Google with AI overview, etc. We also looked at how different platforms, all the social medias, but also forums and maps all have their own type of format that users, when they search there, that they're expecting. So where we left off in part 1 is kind of this, okay, search has changed, but now what? If you were watching that first episode or you were attending our first webinar, you might have been feeling like, okay, well, what does this actually mean for me as a small business owner or someone who works in marketing? And the goal of this education is not to overwhelm you. We're just trying to reframe how to see search, then a different picture than what it was just 5 or 10 years ago, a much fuller, broader picture. It is an exciting time to be working in SEO and digital marketing and keeping up with all of it, but we also understand that it can feel overwhelming. So now let's talk about the now what, or some examples of what this means for you trying to market your business online. Let's go back to the foundation, which is your website. Yes, we are a website design and SEO company, but no, this is not where we try to sell you on getting a new website. Unless, of course, you need one, send us a comment or a DM. So while discovery may happen on Maps or TikTok or even just traditional search, your website is usually going to play a part in the journey of the user, and it's still going to be a critical conversion aspect of search online. We really try to get across the point that your website is the cornerstone for all of your digital marketing efforts, because you should have at least full control over, how it looks, what it says, how it reflects your brand and your brand messaging. It's something you can update, and it's something that can grow with you as you grow and evolve your business. And remember, AI has to pull from somewhere. It's going to pull from a lot of sources more than just your website, but that's always going to be a factor in what it pulls from. So as we go through the next few parts of the different platforms and kind of what to know about each, just remember that a solid website is the foundation, but it can't be the stopping point. So we talked about in the first part how this new platform expansion and search behavior is kind of making marketing feel like an everything everywhere all at once feeling, where you need to be on all the platforms and try to keep up with everything. But that's not really realistic for small business owners. So instead of trying to start with all of them, let's look at this Venn diagram framework as a good place to start and kind of filter through. You need to know what you can sustain, what your capacity is, and then where people are searching, and again, the audience behavior behind it. The lanes that you should, start with and get really consistent at first live in between these two different parts. This is where you'll be able to get the most out of what you put in. So one aspect when we look at the different lanes that are out there is the different type of intent or user readiness when they land on those different platforms. So if we look at something very passive, that would be like TikTok. You're usually getting on there to scroll, maybe get some inspiration, or maybe just turn your brain off after a long day. Versus if you go to Google or Maps, you're probably actively searching and looking for something to immediately act on or know about. A few other examples could be like a meta ad interrupts someone when they're scrolling, let's say on Facebook, versus a Google ad is going to show up for the exact keywords and related searches that someone's searching for. They're both paid ads, but they have a different use case and it might work and behave differently for different businesses. Another example is a B2B business may thrive more on LinkedIn versus a e-commerce brand might do better on Instagram. Both are valid. All of these examples are just different. We want to call this out because you really can't judge one platform off of another one's standards or success. They're all going to have their own types of strategies, posting frequencies, and relevance when it comes to the marketing funnel. So just remember that as you start putting together all the different platforms that you could be on. And now I think it'd be helpful to go through a few examples. So let's start with the fact that the discovery lane is not always the conversion lane for a user. The user is going to journey through many touch points before they feel ready to move forward with buying or contacting someone. So we've heard the number like 7, 14, 21 times. Someone needs to hear something more than once for it to actually stick. People nowadays need multiple touch points to feel ready to move forward. So if you're focusing too much on brand awareness, or as marketers, we like to call this upper funnel, if you're focusing too much on that, do you have enough bottom of the funnel call to actions to really push the sale? Or if you have too many call to actions and bottom of funnel activities, is the lead warm enough when they land there to actually feel ready to convert? This is why we harp so much on a marketing mix. It's called a mix because you need top of funnel brand awareness, but you also need those call to action bottom of funnel mix to get the consumer in a good spot to where they feel ready to move forward. Anna had a great example of this in the webinar. We were looking for custom Mad Banana merch. We recently rebranded and we wanted some unique stuff to represent our brand. When we searched on Google, a lot of kind of old legacy companies came up that were huge, that had all of the really basic merch that nothing really stuck with us. And so we went to Instagram and typed the exact same keyword in there. And the types of content that was coming up was way trendier, more in line with what we were looking for. Some really cool companies that didn't pull up first on search. They're probably newer, they don't have the same domain authority, whatever it is. But we were able to look through their products and social proof on Instagram. When we went to their website, it was a good website as well. And so we felt ready to make that purchase. Now, they could benefit from some traditional website SEO, I'm sure, but it got us thinking that for this type of company, their users might be searching on Instagram to want to see those picture and video proofs before they go to their website, and they might bypass Google search altogether. So it's about knowing where your audience is searching for you and then showing up in that place to search with the format they're expecting. So that was a product-based example. Now let's look at a service-based example. High intent looks different for services. So search will differ by industry and the type of business. That's no surprise, right? Here's a typical user journey for some of the clients that we have in the healthcare space. Let's say a customer needs an employment physical to stay compliant with their regulations and their jobs. So they search on Map for employment physical near me. They find one of our clients' Google My Business profiles, which has been fully optimized, which we have a full separate video on the importance of your Google business profile for local SEO. You should definitely watch that after this video. But they might head from that business profile to their website to make sure it's the type of physical they need, that it's, close enough, and that it's certified for the type of compliance that they're looking for. And then they call and book them directly from our site. Or they might bypass the website altogether. They might see the Google business profile, see it's really close to them, read the great reviews, feel confident enough to book directly from that profile and call, or just walk in for an appointment if they offer that. So having things on your website, like it's mobile friendly, that's a non-negotiable in today's day and age, but having great call to actions, making the right information for what someone's searching for really easily accessible, all of those things go a really far way in this user's search journey because they're going to land on that website, or if they do bypass it, that's why something like a Google business profile audit and, really strong profile is really important. But even we feel this platform pressure. The urge to be everywhere is real because, again, these platforms are free. But as we alluded to earlier, they still are going to take time, strategy, energy to make the content and post, and effort to keep it going. Until we sat down and really chose our lanes for Mad Banana, we felt the same cycle of motivation, burnout, because trying to do it everywhere all at once is really unrealistic, especially if you're just starting out or you're a small team. We're going to talk more about that cycle in just a second, but after we put in a strategy to really build up certain lanes over time based on where people are searching, now we are able to post weekly, on Instagram and TikTok, and we're able to make these long form videos for YouTube, and we're able to add blogs to our website and business profile posts to that profile and really continue all of these efforts in a structured way and in a way that is going to stand the test of time. One other thing we wanted to touch on is the idea of existing on these platforms versus persisting on these platforms. So you might have your handles for, YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, which is great. We always recommend to business owners to go grab your social media handles, grab your Google business profile, grab your Yelp, and at least fill out the basic information. Link to your website, add your bio and, information for people to get in touch with you. Make sure it's your logo and your brand colors. If you can, try to add a few posts that just say who you serve, who you are, what you do, and why you do it. Just a few things to where if someone landed on it for that social proof, they're going to see that this does tie into your larger online presence. But just having those out there doesn't mean that you're actively making a strategy around it and actively posting, right? So there is a difference between just existing on these platforms and then really making them a part of your custom marketing mix. Okay, so that never-ending cycle that I alluded to just a second ago of motivation, burnout. You might have felt something similar if you are, on the marketing team, but you kind of have to do it all yourself, or if you have your own business and this is something that falls under your responsibilities, or if you have a side project that you're trying to get off the ground. You start by posting everywhere, you make the accounts, you're feeling motivated. Then it's hard to stay consistent and you start feeling overwhelmed or not getting the engagement that you thought. Some things start piling up that are more important on your to-do list. And when you realize, a few months later that you haven't posted anything, you get that motivation again to restart. Oh, I need to be on these platforms. And that cycle, can continue on. And it's that motivation, burnout. Either relate to that or you probably know someone who does. And when we talk about this posting, we're not just talking about social media. We're really talking about any digital marketing effort that requires consistency. So that could just be adding a post to your Google business profile. That could just be writing a new service page or a new blog page on your website. If that cycle feels familiar, let's go back to what we covered in part 1, which is kind of this idea of find your search. It's figuring out where your customers are searching, what they expect to see there, and which lanes you should choose first, using that Venn diagram that we just looked at of what you can sustain and the audience behavior behind it. We do host the Find Your Search webinar where we give you a 90-day plan and some actionable takeaways as a small business owner you can implement. Again, if you're interested in registering for our next session of Find Your Search, please leave us a comment. We'll make sure you get that registration link. But some actionable takeaways for you here is to go look at the keyword data behind your top few services. So pick a few services that you want to offer more, that you are your best sellers, that maybe you're about to launch. Go look at all the keyword data for that, really put together a strong list of what people are searching for. Go type those into each of the platforms that we've kind of looked at and see what auto completes. See who pops up first, what type of content is being made around those keywords right now. And then from all of that, pick a few lanes that make sense, that pop out on, oh, I could really speak to that, or oh, there is a lot of search volume I didn't realize behind, our maps profile, and we need to make sure we optimize that, and that's going to be something we prioritize. Or, okay, now that we're seeing what pops up on TikTok for the type of services that we offer, I could totally make videos on that. And now you can start to build out a consistent routine with the keyword data to back it up. Again, we go more into depth in it in our webinar and, send a recap of these actionable steps. So please give us a comment so we'll make sure that you get registered for our next session of it. But in short, search is changing. It has changed. It will continue to change. And so right now, it's really important to find a few lanes that you can do really well and stay consistent in it. And if it's backed by where people are searching and what content they're looking for with the type of format, the behavior that they have in search, you're going to be a lot stronger online in your online presence and your search results. Again, if you haven't watched part 1, we definitely recommend doing that real quick, and then watch that local SEO Google business profile. It gives a lot of really actionable tips as well for small business owners. If we haven't met, I'm Madison with Mad Banana Marketing. And again, we hosted and came up with this Find Your Search webinar with you in mind as small business owners or, people who are really trying to understand the search landscape today and what they can be doing about it. We hope you found this helpful. Give us a like and subscribe to stay tuned for more entrepreneur and digital marketing resources, especially when it comes to website design and SEO. If you found us from one of our 2 chambers that we're involved in, we're so glad to have you. And again, feel free to give us a follow on our socials and here on YouTube. It really means a lot. And I'll see you in the next one.